love my 80s.
You love it? Oh, okay.
Whatever. Do what you got to do, Pete.
All right, Doug, let's go. Let's do this thing.
Let's do it. Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Talk Story Unscripted. I'm Doug.
And I'm Pete.
And today we have a very special guest. We have Ron Strand, the founder of Upper Room Productions. Ron, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Doug. I'm happy to be here.
So Ron, you have been producing events in Southern California since 2009. I'm just curious, what are these events like?
Well, I could give you the long answer, and I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. But in 2009, my wife and I had attended a event at somebody's home, and it was a former NFL player who was going to be speaking, a fellow by the name of Ed McGlasson, who's also a pastor at a Vineyard Church over in Anaheim in California here. And we went, and I was very impressed with his message. He had a message about the heart of the Father. He'd also written a book about the same. And we have a home group in our home, obviously. And we thought, well, we'd love to have Ed come and speak at our home group. So we invited him, and then we decided, well, let's invite friends and family, and we'll serve a dinner. And by the time all of us in our home group did that, we had well over 70 people. So we decided to not have it in the home because it was going to be a little too crowded, and we moved it into the upstairs of a building in Irvine and kind of cleared out a space, set up some chairs, and myself and some of the guys did a little worship set, and then we had Ed speak. And it went so well that well, my screensaver just went on, sorry. It went so well that we decided, well, let's do it again. And the next time we did it, we had, do you remember Warren Duffy? He was a radio broadcaster
Yes.
Here in California. And we had him speak, and he was actually the one that introduced me to Ed McGlasson.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, we did that twice, and then I thought, well, this is kind of a fun thing. And so we decided, let's continue doing it. And I thought, well, maybe I can invite some of the bands and some of the musicians that I used to like, and still do, from the past, mostly out of the Jesus movement. Awesome. And so we invited, I'm trying to remember how we did it first, but I had Chuck Girard come very early on. And then later I was having lunch with Warren Duffy, and he was saying, that thing you're doing is really going well. He says, why don't you put a name to it? I said, well, yeah, I probably should. And he said, well, it's in the upstairs of a building. Would make sense to call it the Upper Room. I thought, wow, why didn't I think of that? We formalized it, and we do it all by donation. So we formed a 501c3, and that was 2009, and it was, I think, September 2009, and we've been doing it once a month ever since.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we were doing it there, and then the city came in because we didn't have a conditional use permit. And an opportunity opened up for us in Mission Viejo, which is about 7 miles south of where we are here. And they opened up a facility for us, which was their youth ministry building. And we've been there ever since. And it's actually a better venue. It seats about 300 people. And we generally attract anywhere between 200 to 300 people on our events.
Man, that's so fun.
So would you say that the Upper Room is kind of like a collision between entertainment and ministry? Is that the best way to describe what you do?
Pete, that is exactly what it is. And I've never actually phrased it that way. And thank you. That is actually a good way to phrase it, because sometimes I have a hard time explaining what we're doing. Yeah. It definitely has an entertainment element to it, but it is ministry because we do it, for donation. We don't charge people to come in. The gospel message is heard either through song or spoken word, and it's been quite an amazing thing. And the popularity of it, particularly amongst baby boomer, because most of the artists we've had have been from the Jesus movement era, and and we've done some crossover stuff and gotten some younger people in there as well.
It's amazing because you've had Kelly Willard, you've had Phil Kagi, Matthew Ward, Bob Bennett, my goodness, Hadley Hawkinsmith, and then you've had some comedians as well. This is crazy. Why do you think these events resonate with your audience?
Well, what we did is and when we went in with both feet, we decided to do this as something outside the walls of the church. Something that somebody would feel comfortable bringing a friend to, that friend may not feel comfortable walking into a church, but they would come and hear music or come and hear comedy.
Right.
And so that was kind of what we decided to do. And also something that would support the local church, because we're not doing church and we have no interest in doing church per se, as you know what I mean. I mean,
right.
This is, as you said, the collision between, how did you word that? Between entertainment and ministry?
The collision between entertainment and church, yeah.
Yeah, church, I like that. And so that's what we're doing. And one of the things that has been a real blessing with this is we found a unexpected benefit from it. It's been the benefit of the ministry of the artists, because one of the things that has happened is a lot of these artists that were kind of the big deal back in the 70s and 80s, the churches aren't calling them anymore. And so their opportunity to go out and minister has waned. And so they have really been blessed by the venue that we've set up, and love playing it, because you got in a very appreciative crowd. Yeah. People embrace them, and it's been really, really a wonderful thing.
I gotta say, it speaks volumes to me. My stepdad was in an 80s rock band, and he had hair down to here for I don't know how long. And so I love that era of music. I couldn't tell you hardly any bands or any songs, but as a kid, I'd be at his concerts and they'd be going, and I'd be up on the stage dancing as a kid. There was one of the lead singers had his hair so long and he's doing this, and he had this cross necklace and he was twirling it around and he stopped and he holds it out. And I'm like, wow. Holy grail, it was such a hoot. And
the 80s hair era, huh?
Oh, it was in its prime. And speaking about going up on stage, I've heard a rumor that sometimes you have gone up to sing with the bands that come to perform. Is that true?
That is true. Wow, you guys have done some research. Where did you find that out? I'm a frustrated musician and a frustrated comedian and a frustrated talk show host. So anytime I get a chance to get up on stage is always kind of fun.
Love it.
Yeah. So me, I'm a novice, not a novice player, but I play guitar and I sing. And me and some of the guys that kind of are, well, from my home group, we've kind of formed a little group, and we'll play every now and then. And then sometimes the artists will invite me up to do to sing some numbers with them.
Super fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
So we do. I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, so, how did you perceive what God was going to do with the Upper Room, and where do you see him taking you guys?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things that, the story I told you and how we started, we didn't set out to start something. It kind of landed in our lap.
Right.
And we did it. And then we saw the numbers grow and the popularity of it grow. We want to see more ministry come out of it. By and large, most of the people that are coming have been Christians, but there are a lot of non-believers who come. And we do give an invitation, and we've had people come forward. We don't do it kind of in the traditional sense. I'll give people an opportunity to come forward, and then we'll have some people up front. And we say, if anybody wants prayer, to come forward, and we'll be happy to pray for you. And that's after we kind of dismiss. So we try to keep it a little bit more low profile, if you will, not because we're ashamed to do anything, but again, we're trying to do something outside the walls of the church, and but yet where the gospel is being shared.
Absolutely.
And but one of the things that we've also seen is the music and the bands that play have brought out a lot of believers who have been believers for a long time, but maybe their faith is a bit shipwrecked. They've gone through the hardships of life. They've gone through divorce. They've lost a spouse. They've lost a child. They have kids, on drugs and whatever circumstances, their faith has taken a back seat. And what we've seen a lot of is a lot of those people that have come because, I remember hearing Odin Fong. I remember hearing Chuck Girard or one of these guys, and I want to go hear that. And the music touches their heart and brings them back into a vital faith. That's been a real blessing to see as well.
That's great.
I'm kind of calling myself the haphazard minister. The things that happen, I don't set out to do; they just kind of do.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Okay, well, God, if that's where you're at, then we'll do that.
This is so good. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you mentioned Odin Fong. He's a good friend of mine, and we actually did a podcast with him recently, and that's how you connected with us. Yeah, you saw that, right. And it's so cool because we talked a lot about the Jesus Revolution, and that just. And then Odin says, hey, you got to talk to Ron Strand. He's doing a documentary on Love Song. And in the document, in our podcast, Odin mentions, Love Song, they were kind of like the real trigger to everything that was starting with the Christian music world. So how did this come about? You creating this documentary? I mean, here you are doing this Upper Room thing, and all of a sudden you're making films. What's going on?
Yeah, that's my other thing. I'm a frustrated movie producer. Well, Love Song played a big part in my journey of faith. I actually had come to faith after Love Song broke up in '76, but the music was still out there. Yeah. And Love Song's music really grabbed a hold of me. And then Chuck Girard, when he went solo, has always been just a big part of my journey because his music resonates so much. Yeah. So I set out, I think I mentioned earlier that I had Chuck Girard come out and minister there. And then we've had Love Song come out and I think they've done it 3 times at the Upper Room.
Wow.
And the third time was 3 years ago in 2017. And I said to Tommy and Chuck, Tommy Coombs and Chuck Girard, I said, hey, why don't we film this and we'll put out a live DVD, a live concert? And they thought that's a great idea. So we put together a camera crew and, again, I know nothing about making films or doing live concerts or anything like that, but we just did it. We had a 4-camera shoot. We had a boom come in and, the guys put a whole thing together. We filmed the whole concert. And what we didn't do is we didn't script the concert out in terms of where the camera shot should be and when. So we had a lot of great footage, but the footage sometimes was not where it should have been. Like, for instance, if one of the guys was doing a solo, it was the camera was over here and they didn't get enough footage of the other camera.
Right.
And so we were trying to wrestle with what we can do with this because we thought some of it was just kind of awkward. So we decided to do some cutaway footage and where those things happened. And the cutaway footage kind of became, we started thinking, well, why don't we do some documentary elements to it? And so this has been 3 years in the making, and we finally finished it. There'll be a caveat on that. We finished it, and then we had 2 focus groups come in, and each of them were about 50 people each, and most of them were people from the Christian music industry. A lot of them were former artists, and that came and viewed it. And what we had in that piece was pretty much 50% live concert and showed all the songs, and 50% documentary, which we interviewed a lot of different people, including the band members. We had Michael W. Smith do a piece. We had Greg Laurie. Brian Duncan.
Wow.
So many others. There's so many that are in the piece.
Oh, fun.
But the response that we got from the focus group was largely they loved the old footage and they loved the interviews. And so one of the fellows that was there is a marketing fellow, and he said, why don't you guys kind of go back and make it a full documentary?
Wow.
And so that's what we've done. And we've gone back and we've done a lot more interviews and put a lot more of the the B-roll stuff together. And we've finished all the shooting. We do have a couple more little minor things to do, but we're in post-production now.
Wow.
And we're doing that here in Southern California. We did some filming out in Nashville where Tommy Coombs and Chuck Girard both live, and some of the folks that were out there that we were able to get on camera. And so it's going to be an incredibly wonderful piece. And we're starting to get a lot of interest from people because the word's out now. And we're actually trying to raise some funds to help finish it. Because when we changed directions, we incurred a lot more production costs that we didn't anticipate in doing the full documentary. So, and that was the other thing I didn't know is how much it costs to put a movie together. So,
no kidding.
Yeah, welcome to the world of production. Oh my. Yeah. I got to ask you though. So, why do you think this story, the love song story, is worth telling? I mean, obviously, you would know. Yeah.
Well, as you said earlier, Pete, they were seminal in the early Christian music, and in fact, the title that we're working on for this piece is "Love Song," a band that changed Christian music. And because they did. I mean, there was a lot of great music out at the time, but it was kind of like Love Song. I hate to make it sound like there's steps or quality of music, but they were far and above, I think, in terms of the quality of music, quality of writing. We're just really. I mean, these guys mostly were professional musicians when they started this.
Yeah.
But not only that, God really used the folks, the guys in Love Song. And they opened up, or I should say God opened up opportunity for them, well, frankly, all over the world, because they all over the United States. And then I think you probably remember that they had a hit in the Philippines. They were a #1 hit there with the song, Love Song. Yeah. And they got to go over there and do a tour, and they were like the Beatles there for a week.
Wow, how fun.
And so these guys have been doing it, for 50 years now. Chuck Girard is still out ministering. Tommy Coombs has formed the Tommy Coombs Band. He was instrumental in running Maranatha Music back in the 80s and 90s. And he travels all over now with the Tommy Coombs Band, with Samaritan Purse, with Franklin Graham. And he's done work with the Billy Graham Association.
Oh, that's great.
And so these guys are still vital in what they're doing. And they're a big part of the Jesus movement, because it was music. A big part of that time was the music that drew in the young hippies.
Yeah.
And God really used them when that, Calvary Chapel was starting, and it just exploded, and they put the tent in, and kids were coming from all over, barefoot, long-haired kids, and they were relating to the music.
Yeah.
And so we thought it would be a wonderful idea to capture this history.
Yeah.
Because we are getting to that point where, we need to capture it. It's not so much about looking back, but more about understanding the past.
Absolutely.
And seeing what God did. That was a marker in time.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do with this. And it's not about nostalgia. It's not about, hey, look what we were back then. It's about what God did. Because there were some amazing stories in this thing.
Yeah.
There's one story that I'll share in particular where they were invited kind of haphazardly to a full gospel businessmen's meeting. And this was back in the early 70s, before they had there wasn't very many long-haired hippie kind of kids playing music with guitars and drums in the church. And when they entered, they said it was like the Red Sea parted, because all these, traditional guys in suits and so forth, just, what are these guys doing here? But that story is told in the piece as well, and it's a really exciting thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're really excited about it.
Well, I tell you what, for me, I'm incredibly excited to see it, because I love the history of what God has done in different revivals. I recently just worked on a documentary that highlighted some points from the second Great Awakening in America, how Christianity came to Hawaii, and just digging into the nuggets and the stories about what God did and how it was totally God's providence. I love that. And then to hear Pete and Odin and you guys talk about the Jesus revolution, and so many people from my generation and those below me No idea about it. No idea that, I mean, just the fact that the Christian music that I know now, DC Talk, I loved DC Talk growing up, and all these guys, Phil Wickham and all these bands that are out now, and how they were influenced by Love Song, how Love Song, I mean, through the Lord used absolutely. This band as like a spark to start a fire. And that is remarkable to me. I'm just curious to ask you, what kind of are the challenges that you have had along the making of this documentary process?
Well,
or should I say rockumentary?
Well, we were calling it a rockumentary, and we're still kind of figuring out whether we should call it a rockumentary or documentary. But Doug, first of all, what you said is absolutely true. One of the things, there's a piece that Chad Butler from Switchfoot does in this, and he talks, and Jeremy Camp, both of them said how they, and I don't know if they worded it exactly like this, but it was basically, we're standing on the shoulders of giants that started this.
Wow.
And they did open that up. That is a whole new genre. It was a whole new genre of music back then.
Right.
And that's the tradition that's carried on today in what we call contemporary Christian music.
So cool.
Some of the challenges that have been in this has been, there's, you guys know, and being in television and entertainment, there's always challenges, getting footage that was not good, or just the challenges of financing, getting the project moving forward. We thought we would have this thing out 2 years ago.
Wow.
And here it is. We just celebrated, I think this week or last week was the 3rd anniversary from that original concert.
Wow.
But what we're also seeing in that is God's providence. And I think the time is of the essence right now, particularly with what we're seeing.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, you being young and being seeing what was happening. One of the things we're really hoping for is that with the subtitle of the piece being a band that changed Christian music, we're hoping that young Christian musicians will say, "Hey, wow, who is this band? Let's go back and see what happened."
Yeah.
Yeah, they're roots.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really great how you mentioned that, you're not reminiscing, and I believe sometimes that could be a danger that we, our best years were, way back when. Right. And, but it is also really important that we understand where the history is and why we are here today. So that's really awesome, and it's great to hear that you have this underlying purpose. And the one thing that really caught my ear is what you just said about God's providence, timing. I really believe you're right. I always tell Doug, I go, "Doug, man, I'm praying for revival because I want to see this happen again." I was there just like you, Ron, and I used to do sound at Calvary Costa Mesa where everybody showed up. I was a young gopher kind of guy, I was too. Dude, that's how I met Odin and some of the other guys in the band. Yeah. So I don't know if you heard, but did you hear about what's going on today? I mean, like right now, they're talking about this new revival happening on the beaches of Huntington Beach. That's exciting. Prayers are being answered. I'm so excited about that. And maybe this is why this is happening right now. What do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right. And I was going to bring that up, and I can't remember what they're calling it, but there's a one-word name for what that movement they're doing. And I think it's also happening in other parts of Southern California here, but mostly I think in Huntington Beach. And young people are coming out by the droves to hear the message, to be baptized because they're hearing the message, and they say, "Hey, you want to make a commitment of faith? Let's go baptize you."
Oh, Ron, no. What, aren't they doing like a 10-week course first before they get baptized?
Yeah, doing a whole catechism and, making sure that they know their theology properly and so forth.
Yeah. It's so cool, man. It's like, I want to look more into what's happening now because that's like, it's like seeing God, other little sparks of fire all around the place again.
Yeah.
It is. And when God moves, and it is a move of God because, you don't manufacture this. No. And that movement in the 70s was a move of God. And it was a special dispensation for that moment in time.
Yeah.
And my gosh, I'll tell you, with the way things are in this country right now and in the world, we are ripe for revival.
Yeah.
Because people are looking for answers. They're looking for something to make sense. What is this all about?
Yeah.
And the message of the gospel, the message of Jesus resonates. When people hear it, and when they particularly hear it in the context of, the craziness of the world, there's a definite response.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We feel that. We definitely feel that happening. Yeah. Sorry, Doug.
No, that's okay. So Ron, maybe we can have your people talk to our people. And when this documentary is ready, we have it shown here in Hawaii. What do you say?
Yeah.
Well, I'll catch the flight over there, and hopefully we won't have any quarantines at the time. But I could come over 2 weeks early and just hang out.
Right?
So,
might as well be quarantined and by a window by the beach, and you're good to go.
We'll put you to work, Ron. We'll put you to work. We'll get you on TV, and with that golden voice, bang.
You do have a golden radio voice. Hello, everyone.
Oh, thank you. I'm a good worker, and I'll do whatever you guys tell me. I'll sweep the floors.
Yeah.
I own a janitorial company, so I know all about that. So
now I don't have to do it anymore. Thanks.
Yeah.
See, I don't have to do it anymore.
No, you're still doing it.
Come on. I can't catch a break.
Hey, but one thing we do, we are hoping and praying for is to do a film festival here. We're calling it the Kahlo Film Festival. We actually had John Irwin. He's the director. He's done a bunch of movies, and actually he's working on the Jesus Revolution movie right now, and that's going to cover, I believe it's going to focus on Greg Laurie's life. So we got to get you guys together. But hey, let's do this thing. I think it's something that God may be putting together. We have a venue that we could use, and it would be very Hawaiian, outdoorsy. There's some bugs though, but we'll work on that.
Well, we'd love to do that. And going back to the Irwin brothers, actually Chuck Gerard and Tommy Coombs were interviewed by one of the Irwin brothers for the piece a week before last, I guess.
Wow.
So there's a lot of cross connection, because I understand the group Love Song is going to be featured, as part of the history of Greg Laurie and so forth.
Yeah. Hey, well, that brings me to the next question, Ron. This is serious stuff now. I think you might have some connections with Love Song. Am I right? You have some connections.
I know a guy. I think I know a guy.
Knows a guy. Knows a guy.
Knows a guy.
I know a couple of guys. Yeah.
Was he the roadie behind the roadie that was working with the roadie? Exactly. Well, why can't you? Can we get Love Song on this podcast, on this show? What do you think? Can you connect with them at all? I don't know. Do you have any power to that?
Well, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Chuck and Tommy are both in town this week. And we're working on the film. We're doing some reviewing of some of the recent footage that we shot, and we're working on it. So, and they're going to be here into next week. So I'm sure I could put that together.
Well, all right. Well, let me look at my calendar. How's tomorrow? Can we do it tomorrow?
I'm sure I can get that to happen. I will. You know what? I'm sure, because we're working on it tomorrow. And if I am the producer. I'm the executive producer.
You're the boss.
You're the man.
I say, hey, this is what we're doing tomorrow. We're going to do that tomorrow.
All right. Well, you guys, you heard it here. Our next podcast is going to be with Love Song. I am so excited for this. Yeah. Ron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, we got Love Song. Yeah.
Ron, thank you for joining us today, Ron. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And for those of you watching, if you want to learn more about how you can support this rockumentary, the information is on the screen. And if you'd like to learn more and see some episodes of The Upper Room, you can see that link on the screen as well. Ron, been a pleasure having you on the show. And to everyone, we'll see you next time. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thanks, guys.